Luna, my sister who vanished without a trace 3 years prior, reappeared on the very night my new husband and I returned to my ancestral village. I found her, deep within the ancient shadowy pine forest, locked in a fervent embrace with Dominic, my husband, wearing my own pristine white wedding gown. Luna was the foundling Elias my father had discovered, a child born with a disability, like a delicate, ungrowing doll. But in that moment she stood at the height of any grown woman. My eyes fixed on the unnatural fullness of her skirt, I was chillingly certain that whatever was concealed beneath that fabric was not her own body. To be perfectly honest, the thought of returning to the village filled me with a profound reluctance. Yet I felt compelled. Elias had sent word he was gravely ill, perhaps on his deathbed. Was the golden phoenix who had flown from this isolated hollow, the pride and model for the villagers. I couldn't possibly be seen as someone who had abandoned my roots once I had ascended. By rights, I should have felt nothing but gratitude for all Elias's sacrifices that had brought me to where I stood today. But every time my mind drifted to the source of the money that had funded my education, a deep, unsettling wave of shame washed over me. From the moment I enrolled in university, I had thrown myself into part-time work with an almost desperate fury, vowing never again to accept his tainted money. After graduating, I secured a good position in a reputable company in the city. There I met Dominic, a warm, handsome man who seemed like a breath of fresh air. My destiny finally felt like it had fundamentally shifted. We had planned our wedding, chosen a date, and were now husband and wife. Reluctantly, out of a sense of duty and appearances, I invited Elias. But he claimed his health was failing rapidly, that he might not have long left. He feared dying alone in a strange city and pleaded with me to return to the village for a traditional banquet, allowing him some final dignity and face before our relatives and neighbors. Shortly after our call ended, a significant sum, 200,000 yuan, appeared in my bank account, accompanied by a message insisting it was my dowry and that I must accept it. Thinking of him, alone and suffering in that old, isolated mountain village, a strange pang struck my heart. I pushed aside the persistent prickle of resentment, and the day after our small city wedding, Dominic and I rushed back. 10 kilometers from the village, the mountain road was already consumed by swirling mist. This place always embraced the fog, a perfect, suffocating mirror of my life before university. A chaotic, heavy oppression. Shall we walk the rest of the way? Dominic suggested. Recent rain had slicked the mountain path, making it perilous. The taxi driver stopped abruptly at the edge of the old pine forest behind the village. Dominic and I had no choice but to link hands and proceed on foot. It was late afternoon now, and the fog was so thick it disoriented us completely. This mist was different from my childhood memories. Not just unnaturally damp and cold, but carrying an intense metallic stench like stagnant water mixed with something decaying. Dominic, ever thoughtful, handed me a mask, but the smell was so pervasive it still made me want to gag. The pine forest loomed, a heavy black mass in the mist, like twisted, monstrous shapes. The calls of strange birds echoed from within, at times sounding eerily like someone cackling chillingly. Despite it being June, by the time we finally reached the house, the damp, penetrating mist had soaked me through, leaving me shivering uncontrollably. Inside, I was immediately struck by the unexpected sight of Elias. He didn't resemble the frail, near-death figure I had envisioned. Instead, he looked considerably heavier, his usually thin face now plump and glistening with an almost oily sheen under the lamplight. He wore an apron, having prepared a large, welcoming spread, and constantly pressed food onto Dominic. Every now and then my eyes met his, seemingly filled with kindly affection, and that long-dormant feeling of revulsion churned in my stomach unstoppable. After the meal, I wanted to avoid prolonged conversation with Elias. Using tiredness as an excuse, I quickly guided Dominic into the bedroom. After settling us, Elias solicitously sprinkled a careful circle of ash from the hearth around the doorway. Dominic and I exchanged bewildered glances. The time for traditional rituals of ancestor veneration had long passed. Why would he do this now? Elias offered a strained laugh. He explained that the mountain fog had been particularly dense lately, and unknown things often crept into homes during the night. He claimed these entities were the cause of his illness, adding that recently he'd been hearing Eleanor, my mother's, voice calling out more frequently. "Perhaps your mother is trying to welcome me away," Elias murmured, his voice taking on a dramatic, mournful tone. "But how could I bear to leave without seeing my precious Sarah married?" "Oh, stop it. Don't talk like that. You're just ill," I interrupted, my voice sharper than I intended. I was acutely aware of Dominic's presence and feared Elias's superstitious rambling would make him think strangely of us. "We'll take you for a checkup after the banquet tomorrow. There's no point talking about these things late at night." Before he could finish, I firmly closed the door, shutting him out. Dominic seemed about to speak, but seeing the tightness around my eyes and mouth, he remained silent. I placed the pristine white wedding dress I planned to wear the next day carefully by the bed and urged Dominic to wash up quickly. City life had left me unaccustomed to physical exertion, and the walk up the mountain road had completely exhausted me. I fell asleep within minutes of lying down. Lost in a hazy state between wakefulness and slumber, a peculiar sound drifted into my awareness. At first it was faint, uncertain, but as the sound grew clearer, sharper, it jolted me fully awake. That sound. The low guttural moan I had heard somewhere before. Wait, wasn't she gone? She had been missing for so long. My hand instinctively reached out beside me. Empty. Dominic was gone. The long, drawn-out moaning began again, sometimes near, sometimes seemingly further away, like some unseen entity calling out. Panicked, I quickly grabbed a jacket and rushed out of the bedroom. Following the path of that strange, shameful, almost lewd sound, I ran frantically through the darkness towards the old pine forest. Finally, deep within the shadows of the trees, I found him. In the murky, filtered moonlight, Dominic was wrapped in a passionate kiss with a woman. She wore my wedding dress, the fabric of the shoulder strap strained and torn by Dominic's restless hand, revealing a stretch of pale skin. With a scream of pure fury, I yelled Dominic's name. Both figures turned their heads towards me simultaneously. The woman's face made me shriek again, a raw sound tearing from my throat. It was my face. Dominic, seeing me, recoiled as if he'd touched something electrified, pushing the woman away from him abruptly. To my astonishment, the woman didn't fall. She merely swayed back and forth with the force of the push, like a bizarre weighted doll. When she steadied herself, she suddenly let out a peal of wild, deranged laughter. As her features contorted with mirth, the skin on her face seemed to loosen, to peel away of its own accord, revealing the visage beneath. Luna, my sister, gone for 3 years. But how could she be so tall? No, something was profoundly wrong. Her dress was unnaturally full and distended below the waist, as if she was being carried or supported by something hidden. I was certain it was not her own body inside that dress. Luna had been brought home by Elias the afternoon after Eleanor's funeral. She was undeniably beautiful in her own strange way, large, luminous eyes, naturally blue irises, and a tangle of naturally curly hair that made her resemble a fragile porcelain doll from a vintage toy shop. When Elias first carried her into the village, people called her a gift from the heavens, a replacement for what had been lost. I was still trapped in the raw agony of my mother's sudden death and felt no warmth towards Luna. Instead, a dark, childish thought took root. Perhaps Luna was some kind of malevolent spirit, and her arrival was precisely why Mother had fallen into the ravine. I had carried immense guilt over Mother's death. That evening, there was an opera performance in the village behind the mountain. I had listened for a while, then complained I was thirsty. Mother had promised to get me water. I waited and she never returned. Only when Elias rushed over, frantic, asking where Mother was, did a cold wave of panic seize me. We searched until the opera ended, finally finding Mother in the deep ravine. The back of her head was severely injured, and her body was already cold. I cried for days and nights, utterly convinced I had indirectly caused her death. If I hadn't demanded water, Mother would not have left the house, and she would never have fallen. But here Luna was, arriving so soon after Mother's passing. I shifted the crushing weight of my self-blame onto her. This was compounded by Elias's excessive attention to her. He slept with her every night, fed her by hand, dressed her in elaborate, almost doll-like clothes, and barely paid me any mind. My resentment towards her deepened into hate. To avoid that house, I often stayed at school until late, using my studies as an escape. My grades became surprisingly excellent. Elias, holding my report cards, would smile through teary eyes, proclaiming me his hope. "Luna is your real hope, isn't she?" I retorted with a bitter laugh one day. Elias glanced at Luna, then sighed heavily. It was then that I noticed something was profoundly wrong. Luna had been with us for a considerable time. Children her age were already running and playing wildly, but she remained unchanged, tethered to her walker and perpetually in diapers. She wasn't growing. She was a permanently disabled foundling. Elias must have been utterly mad to bring such a burden home. Elias insisted I focus entirely on my studies, promising to handle the tuition. Luna, hearing his words, dragged her walker closer and echoed in a soft, childlike voice, "Leave it to me." I sneered, looking down at her. "Humph, who needs help from a burden like you?" But reality soon made a mockery of my pride. Elias began taking Luna out to earn money. Before long, villagers whispered that they were making a considerable sum by begging. My tuition fees, my nice clothes, my good stationery. All the material advantages that allowed me to feel equal to my classmates were, indeed, directly linked to her. Yet, fueled by fierce pride, I couldn't bring myself to accept that Luna was helping me. One day, after Elias returned, he brought Luna to the school gate to wait for me. Luna stood in her walker, excitedly extending her arms and sliding towards me. The diaper beneath her was heavily soiled and bulging, the stench reaching me from a distance. I was attending the county's prestigious high school. My classmates came from increasingly affluent backgrounds. Catching the strange, curious glances from my peers, I felt a surge of shame and panic. As she reached me, I quickly thrust a tenuous note at her, fleeing as if she were afflicted with a terrible disease, leaving Luna stunned and wailing on the spot. By then, through sheer effort and my relatively attractive appearance, I had become both the top student and the campus beauty, the object of many boys' unspoken admiration. How could I possibly let them know I came from a broken home and had a monstrous sister? There was another deeper reason for my revulsion. The night before Elias took Luna out to beg, I had heard those shameful, unsettling sounds coming from his room. The sounds of abuse and Luna's pained whimpers. It seemed this doll-like foundling was willing to endure anything to receive some twisted form of her father's attention. Sickened, I vowed to get into university, escape this squalid life, and never rely on their ill-gotten money. In university I rarely called home. Elias also rarely called me. Perhaps my cold indifference conveyed more than words could. It wasn't until the night of my graduation that Elias called. He sobbed for a long time before managing to tell me Luna was lost. My response was deliberately cold. "Perhaps some old scavenger picked her up then," I said flatly. Elias's weeping stopped abruptly, and he hung up the phone without another word. Now the most baffling thing was seeing Luna like this. As I stood there, frozen by shock, Luna swayed. With an almost impossible, gravity-defying lurch, she leaped onto Dominic's back. He crashed to the ground, his face instantly smeared with blood. I screamed, lunging towards them, but missed, stumbling into a patch of mud. Luna clung to Dominic's neck, sucking something from him with rapid, sickening movements, then let out a sharp, triumphant shriek. With a disturbing, segmented motion like a centipede, she began scuttling towards me. Her naturally adorable doll face was now a mask of grotesque distortion, and there was a dark, oozing wound in her neck, pulsing with sickening fluid. Unable to react quickly enough, I fell backward. Just as I braced myself for a fatal blow, a blinding flash of white light ignited before my eyes. With a violent jolt, I gasped and woke up. It was a dream. Thank heaven it was only a dream. Panting, my heart still hammering against my ribs, I quickly realized the bedroom door was indeed ajar. The circle of hearth ash father had sprinkled lay broken, with a clear gap. Next to it were the unmistakable tracks of a walker being dragged. My wedding dress lay discarded on the floor, crushed and ruined. And Dominic? He was still deeply asleep, groaning in pain, unresponsive no matter how much I shook him. Could it really be Luna? A cold sweat broke out all over me. I frantically continued to shake Dominic. He stirred unconsciously, rolling over, and something was attached. To his back, a doll. It was one of Luna's old toys. The horrific images from my dream flooded back, and I couldn't suppress a desperate cry. The door burst open almost instantly. It was Elias. Along with him swirled the thick, foul-smelling fog, intensifying the strange odor in the room. A chilling blast of air swept in. "Father, watch out!" I screamed. The doll, as if snatched by an invisible hand, flew directly towards Elias's face. He instinctively jerked his head aside, and the doll vanished into the dense fog outside the doorway. "Father, tell me, has Luna returned? What is she doing, playing these terrifying games?" I pointed accusingly at the walker tracks, my voice thick with accusation. "Impossible," he insisted, his voice strained. "Why impossible?" Elias coughed, avoiding my question. He bent down to examine Dominic. Dominic's face was flushed crimson, and his long, painful moans continued without interruption. I touched his forehead, it was burning hot. Dominic had a fever. I stared at Elias, completely helpless. He bent again, lifting Dominic onto his back, carrying him towards the electric tricycle in the yard. I scrambled to place a thin quilt in the back of the cart. Elias started the engine, and we jolted forward into the impenetrable night. The fog remained thick and rank, the weak moonlight unable to pierce it, dissolving the night into a chaotic, sightless mass. The mountain road was rough and challenging. The small tricycle struggled forward in the visibility of less than 10 meters. The village doctor's house was less than 5 kilometers away, yet we bounced along for nearly an hour and still hadn't reached it. The mountain path seemed swallowed by the night mist, stretching endlessly into the darkness. Stroking Dominic's burning forehead, I felt a desperate urge to cry. "Almost there, Sarah, don't panic," Elias said, his voice sounding unnaturally cheerful. "Listen, you can hear the sound of videos playing. The doctor must not have any patients right now, just sitting by the window playing on his phone. We're almost there." I quieted my panicked breathing and listened intently. And indeed, the night that had been so silent it lacked even the chirping of crickets now carried the sound of those distinct, often irritating bursts of laughter from a popular video app. Perhaps spurred by the sound, Elias suddenly accelerated recklessly. An abrupt, unexpected break threw me forward, nearly tossing me out of the cart. I grabbed the side railing, about to unleash my anger when Elias got out. In the weak yellow beam of the headlamp, I saw with horrifying clarity that there was no clinic. We had somehow inexplicably driven deep into the heart of the old pine forest. This forest had stood here for as long as I could remember, its age unknowable. It was the place where dead village animals, unwanted female infants, and other unwanted things were discarded. The deeper parts of the woods constantly emitted the foul odor of decay. Villagers avoided it like a blight, even taking detours to the market, let alone bringing a sick person near. But why had I heard the sound of videos just now? Could someone have deliberately lured us here? The situation was so bizarre it tangled my thoughts into an impossible knot. Elias was clearly also flustered, scanning the surroundings restlessly. But the trees and undergrowth were so dense there was no discernible path. It was truly impossible to explain how we had gotten here. Elias tried to soothe me, telling me not to panic, to stay quietly with Dominic while he went to look for the way out. Holding the semi-conscious Dominic, I prayed desperately. "It will be all right, everything will be all right. Maybe this is just another dream, and it will end when I wake up." After more than 15 minutes, Elias still hadn't returned. I pulled out the last half bottle of mineral water, carefully trying to moisten Dominic's lips. With a sudden piercing shriek from a night bird, a dark shape flashed past the back of the cart. "Father? Father, is that you? Did you find the way? Father?" I called out several times, but there was no answer. Worried something had happened to him, I quickly jumped off the cart. After only a few steps, I heard a low rustling sound behind me. Instinct screamed at me to turn around. No. I ran back like a madwoman. The black shadow had already dragged Dominic off the cart. No. Nobody was going to hurt my Dominic. Fiery surge of rage quickly overpowered my fear of the unknown. I blindly grabbed a rock from the ground and lunged like a cornered animal. Finally, before Dominic could be dragged further into the dense fog, I threw myself at the black shadow. Gritting my teeth, I brought the rock down on its head. Once, twice, 3 times. The shadow crumpled limply to the ground. Strangely, throughout the attack, it had not made a single sound of pain or cried out. It was as if I hadn't been hitting flesh and bone, but a sack of kindling. Ho ho ho. Hee hee. Along with the chilling, unnatural laughter, I heard the distinctive sound of a walker being dragged across the ground. The fog in the forest thinned slightly. Something like snow, yet not snow, was falling, fluttering down, stinging my face with a burning sensation. Luna, is that you? If you're back, then face me. Father raised you for so many years. What are you doing pretending to be a ghost like this? I shouted, my voice hoarse with fury. The laughter stopped abruptly. From the deep shadows of the pine forest, a tall woman in a red wedding dress slowly moved towards me. Her hair was intricately styled, pulled high, and beneath the glittering pearl ornaments, the face was undeniably Luna's. That delicate, doll-like face now fixed in a sinister smile. Luna's body beneath the wedding dress was exactly as I had seen in my dream, unnaturally tall and swollen. Her gait was bizarre, a strange swaying shuffle as if she were being carried by something hidden, until she stopped just before me. Luna's smile widened malevolently as she hooked a finger under my chin, forcing me to look up at her, then pointed to the shadow of the body on the ground. Her excited blue eyes gleamed with disturbing delight. How does it feel to kill father with your own hands? My dear sister. Ha, that old man. I swallowed his heart, and he still tried to come back and save his city son-in-law. Ha. Who would have thought he'd end up being killed by his own proud daughter? Ha, this is fun. No. I scrambled forward in disbelief, fumbling frantically to turn the face of the body towards me. It was Elias. His head was indeed smashed, and there was a gaping wound in his chest. A large volume of thick black liquid oozed from the opening. Crying hysterically, I tugged at Elias's arm. A piece of flesh and skin peeled away, revealing tangled root-like structures beneath. These things seemed alive, writhing and pushing outward, vying for space. The heavy, sickening smell of decay hit me full force, making me gag uncontrollably. In that horrifying moment, I finally understood. Elias hadn't been fat. He had been distended, bloated by these monstrous root-like growths. You did this to father. Why? He picked you up and raised you for so many years. Is this how you repay him? I'll kill you, you heartless monster. I snatched a branch and lunged at Luna. Her unnaturally long body swayed sharply, and I tumbled to the ground, pushing myself up. Unwilling to give up, a cloud of red mist like a net descended over me. A pale red light pierced the oppressive gloom of the pine forest, carving out a winding path. This path. It was so familiar. It was exactly like the mountain road Mother used to take me to the movies. And indeed, a woman in a red dress was walking rapidly away from me, her back turned. Her long black ponytail swayed with the night wind. It was a silhouette I would recognize anywhere, even unto death. I had missed her so terribly over the years. She had left so suddenly back then, without even a chance to give me a final word of advice. I had to catch up to her to see her face one last time. I struggled to rise, shouting "Mother!" But she seemed not to hear me, just kept running forward frantically. The sounds of a man and woman arguing drifted from ahead, rising and falling. My mother rushed towards them like a woman possessed. The couple turned back in the blinding white light. It was Elias and a strange, seductive woman I had never seen before. Caught off guard by Mother's sudden attack, the woman became enraged and immediately began cursing and physically struggling with Mother. The woman was slightly frilier and was quickly pinned down by Mother. Just as Mother's fist was about to land, Elias rushed forward. With one swift pull, the woman easily rolled away. Mother tried to lunge again, but Elias shoved her roughly. Mother lost her balance and stumbled backward. Elias and I, both panicking, lunged forward to grab her, but my hands passed through Mother's form as if it were shimmering water, only disturbing her image. Elias grabbed at empty air. Just like that, Mother fell into the dark abyss of death. The scene shifted again. Elias was arguing with the same woman in a small, cramped rental room. The woman seemed determined to leave, but Elias was refusing. Luna was there, crying hysterically, terrified. The woman eventually fled, choosing the day of my mother's funeral to abandon Luna in that dingy, dark room. Elias held Luna, shaking and weeping, while Luna cried frantically in terror. It was then I understood. Luna wasn't a foundling at all, nor was she the tiny infant everyone thought. She was Elias's illegitimate daughter, only 2 years younger than me. Mother had suffered severe complications during my birth, her health permanently damaged. Elias, desperate for a male heir under pressure from his family, had secretly sought out a woman from another town. The original plan was for her to bear him a son, after which he would pay her off. But the hospital's prenatal tests were wrong. The woman gave birth not only to a daughter but one afflicted with a strange illness that prevented her from growing normally. Elias and the woman frequently argued over money because of this. After that night, when the woman saw my mother was dead, she feared getting entangled and losing any chance of money, so she ruthlessly abandoned Luna and ran. With no other option, Elias brought Luna home, spinning the lie that he had found a foundling by the wild lake behind the mountain. Driven by guilt over his role in Mother's death, Elias fixated on compensating me while simultaneously directing his rage towards the outside woman onto Luna. By day, Luna was his precious daughter in his arms, and he was the kind, compassionate father in the villagers' eyes. But by night he would drink. Drunk, he would lock the door and descend into madness. He would burn Luna with cigarette butts, jab needles into her thighs. Luna dared not cry loudly, knowing it would only bring harsher punishment. Elias seemed to find a perverse release from his guilt over Mother's death through Luna's suffering, mimicking her pained whimpers in twisted solidarity. The sheer volume of information, the horrifying details and the grotesque visions, were pushing me towards a breakdown. I couldn't bear to see any more. Covering my head, I screamed in anguish. This home, this life was far, far darker than I had ever imagined. Mother's death wasn't my fault, it was Elias's. And Luna wasn't a scheming foundling vying for affection, but a victim of cruel circumstances. No wonder she had always looked at me with such desperate longing, calling sister. No wonder she constantly struggled to drag her walker towards me. Her experiences had been far more terrifying, far more pathetic than mine. And tragically, because of my shallow judgment, I had not only never helped her but had pushed her away in disgust every single time. No, how could this have happened? In the throes of extreme pain, I ran blindly. Sharp rocks cut into my ankles, branches tore at my skin, but none of these physical wounds matched the shattering pain of the distorted past revealed to me. The rain began to pour down, a torrential downpour. I ran until I was utterly exhausted, spent. I tumbled forward, expecting to land on sharp rocks, but instead fell into a soft, warm embrace. Shua, my child, don't be afraid. Mother is here. Stay with Mother. We will never be separated again. I collapsed into Mother's comforting arms. She gently began to sing. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Up above the world so high like a diamond in the sky. In the soothing lullaby, my consciousness began to drift, fading, as if I were returning to a carefree childhood. A summer night heavy with the scent of roses, Mother and I lying on the small cot in the courtyard, I counting the stars, Mother singing, and Father sitting beside us, fanning us with a palm leaf. Father, Mother, I wish we could be together forever. Something wet and chilling, accompanied by the song, began to tighten around me. I was overwhelmingly tired, desperate to sink into unconscious sleep. But suddenly I heard Dominic's urgent shout. Sarah, run! A tremendous crash echoed. Mother was gone. I was flung several meters away, coughing up a mouthful of blood. Disoriented, I found myself back in the pine forest, Elias's body lying beside me. The fog had cleared, and a fine persistent drizzle fell from the sky. By the light of the electric tricycle's headlamp, I saw Dominic, wielding a pine branch, fighting with Luna. Sarah, run. Thank God the rain woke me up. That creature almost forced its way into your chest just now. Run. Get out of the forest and call for help. Luna giggled, easily dodging Dominic's frantic attacks. When she'd had enough of the game, her expression turned dark. She swayed her body, and with a horrible grinding sound, like bones fracturing and shifting, the lower hem of her wedding dress ripped open. A massive tangle of black roots, interspersed with human heads, burst forth writhing and eager. They shrieked and laughed, spreading towards me. In those grotesque heads, I saw mother, father, the woman from the vision, and other familiar faces of village elders. Dominic seized an opening and thrust the pine branch towards Luna's eyes. A piercing shriek tore through the air. Luna writhed on the ground for a few moments, then tumbled over the edge of the cliff behind the old pine forest. But tragically, in the instant before she fell, those monstrous roots had already coiled around Dominic's ankles. I desperately grabbed for his hand, but within seconds I was pulled down with him. After what felt like an eternity of mountain wind rushing past my ears, there was a loud splash. We landed together in the wild lake below the mountain. The black roots became strangely pliant in the water, coiling around Dominic's body like sinister water snakes. Seeing them reach his chest, Dominic violently pulled his hand free from mine and mouthed the word, "Go." He clamped his teeth down hard on the central root structure, the one directly connected to Luna's neck. Luna thrashed in the water like a wounded lake creature, writhing in agony. The lake water quickly became tainted with a foul-smelling, inky black liquid. I was struck by a root and thrown far away. Dominic, seizing the opportunity, dragged Luna down with him towards the lake bed. I frantically made desperate gestures to Dominic, but I could only vaguely discern his bloodied form slowly dissolving into the dark, tainted water, gradually vanishing into the depths of the lake. I crawled onto the bank, the rain having stopped. The moon, obscured by clouds, cast a hazy light on the shore. I lay there by the edge of the bottomless lake, weeping uncontrollably. Everything was gone. Father, mother, Dominic. Dominic, did you know how many years of struggle it took me to finally break free from this stagnant, oppressive mountain hollow? To climb step by step towards a place where I could stand beside you? We had barely lived in our new home, the impatiens on the balcony hadn't even bloomed, our new corgi wasn't used to us yet, our planned honeymoon hadn't begun. Dominic, come back. I can't live without you. My heartbroken cries echoed in the deserted valley. No, I couldn't be defeated. I had to survive. Dominic sacrificed himself not for me to wallow in despair. He must have wanted me to live. After lying by the lake for over an hour, I forced myself to find a semblance of calm. Taking a deep breath, I gritted my teeth and began to walk towards the direction where the morning star was rising. Finally, as the first rays of dawn broke through the sky, I stumbled and crawled my way through the old pine forest. As the tension finally eased, I became acutely aware of the pain searing through my body, particularly a bone-deep ache in my right ankle. Looking down, I saw it was bleeding. I tore a strip from the hem of my jacket to bandage it, but then I noticed something horrifying attached to it. A small piece of black root. I shrieked and tried to pull it off, but the moment my hand touched it, the thing burrowed into my flesh like a parasite. Terror seized me. I slapped and clawed at my ankle, yelling, but it was no use. A strange, chilling dampness began to spread slowly from my ankle, creeping up towards my heart, towards my head. I ran blindly through the mist, desperate to find someone, anyone, heading to the early market. But the world remained silent, deserted. The fog thickened again, the heavy, sickening stench invading my nostrils. I ran aimlessly through the mist, and something red, like smeared blood, began to cloud my vision. My consciousness grew weaker. My entire being felt as if it were being compressed, squeezed smaller and smaller. I saw Luna again, or perhaps a memory of her. To earn the tuition for my prestigious high school, Elias had taken Luna to beg in a distant, bustling city. There were many wealthy people in the city, but also far too many beggars. Those with amputated limbs, the blind, students in uniform pleading for school fees. So many, some genuine, some frauds. The city dwellers were already overwhelmed by pity, or perhaps simply tired of being deceived. Begging was not as easy as it seemed. Luna sat in Elias's lap, day after day, baking in the sun outside large shopping malls. Few people gave them money, until one evening, Luna lay waiting under a bridge for Elias to return with liquor, and a homeless man furtively pulled back her diaper. Elias found them. He dragged the homeless man aside, beating him fiercely. The man cowardly pulled out a few dirty bills. Elias hesitated for a moment, then slowly lowered his fists. From then on, Luna no longer sat with Elias outside the malls. Instead, she stayed only under the bridge. And every day, she earned more than any other beggar there. This money ultimately paid for my fees at the top high school, my beautiful clothes, and all the necessities that ensured I never felt inferior to my classmates. After I went to university, I rarely contacted them. Elias also stopped taking Luna begging. In his despair, he turned to gambling. Unable to pay his debts, he eventually used Luna as collateral. The debt collectors took her away. They locked Luna in a dark, small room, dressing her up like a doll. An exposed, doll-like figure, forced every day to pose for twisted videos. The videos became popular, they earned a lot of money, and various men began to frequent the room. One night, during a thunderstorm, Luna bit off one of the photographer's fingers. In a fit of rage, the photographer snapped Luna's neck and buried her deep within the old pine forest. They paid Elias 200,000 yuan. Faced with a potentially losing court case and the money, Elias chose the money. After Luna was gone, Elias quit gambling. That money remained untouched until my wedding. Luna's small body quickly decomposed beneath the ancient pine tree, but her head fused with the tangled roots spreading underground. She killed the men who came to the pine forest to film their horror videos. Then, in the dead of night, she returned home, using the roots that had absorbed her flesh and blood to pierce Elias's body, slowly consuming his organs from within. That night, possessing the doll, she had sought to claim the person I loved most, leaving me to die in agony, but Eleanor's spirit had intervened, blocking her path. In the blood-red mist, Luna had devoured my mother's last lingering connection to me. My consciousness was rapidly fading, my body still stumbling forward like a startled animal. In the bone-chilling cold, I heard Luna's soft saccharine voice. "My dearest sister, I was your stepping stone for so many years, yet you never even looked at me properly. It was because of you that I became a plaything for men. My dearest sister, I cannot bear this. If being disabled was a sin, then I should have been left to perish. Why was I constantly trampled upon? Sister, now it is time for you to hand over this beautiful, brilliant life for me to experience. After all, your brilliance is steeped in so much of my filth. Don't worry, my dearest sister, I will love Dominic well for you." Thump, thump, thump. A series of heavy, unnatural footsteps sounded on the small path. Someone was finally coming. Their steps were mechanical, their eyes vacant. It was Dominic. His body was bloated, swollen like Elias's had been, and the stench was overpoweringly foul. He moved slowly closer, then leaned down and kissed my lips. But by then, my consciousness was almost completely withdrawn. Luna controlled my body, wrapping her arms tightly around Dominic, pulling him into a chilling embrace.